If it sounds good, hey, it is good. Good morning. What's up? I'm Bill DeWeese, professional voiceover talent and voiceover coach, author of the book Get Paid Using Your Voice. And by the way, you can get the digital download of this for less than $10. So whether you want the digital download, the paperback, or you want the audiobook, or you want all three, link below in the description, check it out. And a couple things coming up before we get into the meat and potatoes today, meaning the content for the video. Just a quick reminder that Aaron Bradley's TV affiliate / radio imaging / promo live event training is coming up at the end of this month. We have not opened up registration for it yet, but we will be coming not too long from now. Just want to make you aware of that. It will be the event itself will be May 29th. All right. So mark that down and be ready for that. Also, my first live event in years. I've done live events, a couple in Los Angeles, Las Vegas, New York, here in the Chicago area, but it's been years. And I'll be starting up the engine to do that again this summer, July 13th. Mark that one down on your calendar. And again, more details coming very soon on that. Hope you guys are doing well. If you haven't yet, check in on the live chat. Let me know where you're watching or listening from this morning. I would appreciate that. Hope you're enjoying some good coffee this morning. Of course, I'm enjoying my favorite, Myers Michigan cherry coffee. So what's this sounds good thing? This comes about from a conversation I was having with some of the students in my voiceover blueprint program yesterday. And to learn more about that program, link below in the description as well. But we were talking about audio and the I was getting a lot of questions about audio. Well, like, what order should I do things? What about normalizing? Should I do it at this point? At this point, should I do it multiple times? What about, where does EQ go? We're talking about all kinds of different things. And they're legitimate questions. And let me just say, in terms of my background in audio engineering, I mean, I am not a trained audio engineer. I come from a background in broadcasting and in music production, and I do sound design and demo production. So I'm an experienced producer. But in terms of being an audio engineer, and I can engineer audio, and I've learned over decades how to do it. But I didn't go to school, so I don't have a more theoretical understanding of audio engineering. And here's what I find that happens, especially when somebody newer gets into voiceover, they hear somebody with a very technical background lay out the rules of audio and how it is to be done. And they're terribly afraid, and understandably so, that if they get something out of order or they don't do it exactly the way that it was explained that they should do it, if they don't follow the rules of audio, that somehow their audio is going to be less than. And that's not necessarily the case. Now, understand there are some basic things about audio you need to understand. And when it comes to voiceover, the great thing is the audio is not complicated. We're not producing records. Now, if you're going to be a demo producer like me, or you want to produce, be a sound designer, or you want to be a music producer, that there's a lot more intricacy. There's many more dynamics, a lot of stuff going on. So you need to understand a whole lot. But when it comes to just voiceover, it's very straightforward, very simple. So don't be overwhelmed by what you hear people share with you. And don't feel that there is only one way to do it. Here's the thing. Here's the test. If it sounds good, it is good. If your noise floor is low, if your audio sounds present, good audio when you hear it. And if you don't, a couple of things you can do. Listen to voiceovers all the time, the good stuff, like on national TV. Become a student. Listen and experiment. Experiment with with your compression, with your EQ. Experiment with the order. I have done when I'm working on a production. For me, I may have a standard way that I start, but I'll start mixing things around. Sometimes I'll EQ multiple times. I'll compress multiple times. I'll try, working with levels here. I may adjust levels again in the end. It is not an ABC 1, 2, 3 kind of thing. Yeah, there's some guidelines and principles that are good to understand. But at the end of the day, you can play around with it. And if it sounds good, it is good. Don't let it get sucked into all of this stuff that you hear from the experts out there who say that it must be this and it must be that and it must be done this way. Remember this story. the Beatles, when the earlier Beatles records were recorded at EMI Studios in London. Now, EMI was a very prestigious institution among the English. I mean, that's where where they were recording music for decades before that. Orchestras, bands, the music of the day. And the engineers that ran those studios were very button up, suit and tie kind of folk. And they had a very specific way that things were to be done. We could call it legalistic, if you will. And so when I remember hearing an interview with Paul McCartney, he said the Beatles gave the EMI engineers fits because they didn't want to do it the way everybody else had done it. They were looking for what sounded good, and they were willing to try and experiment with anything to get the sound that they wanted. And it took some doing, but finally they were able to convince the EMI engineers to work with them. Of course, now known as Abbey Road Studio. That might be more familiar to you. But the point being, yes, there are principles, but in music, in voiceover, and people break the rules, not the principles necessarily. I mean, it needs to sound good, but the order in which you do things, the way in which you do things to get the sound that they want. So don't be afraid to get your hands dirty. Experiment, fool around a bit, listen, compare what you were doing yesterday to maybe some new settings that you try today, and then compare it to what you hear on television. And then dial in what you want. Don't be afraid to get your hands dirty and to experiment. Some of the great artists do break the rules, and they come up with stuff that we have never heard before, that we've never seen before. I'm not encouraging you to be experimental with your voiceover audio. That's not the point. The point is there is not an ABC 1, 2, 3 way of doing this. And once you learn the basic principles, once you start fooling around with it, you won't become so obsessive about the rules that people have laid out for you, because it can be what I'm trying to do is take obstacles out of the way that distract, that detour you away from the important stuff. Get your audio sounding good, and then don't worry about it anymore. But don't let a lot of the noise and the chatter fill your head and then pull you in this way and pull you in that way. If your audio sounds good, it is good, period. Your clients aren't measuring decibel levels. They're not, they're not looking or listening under a microscope to figure out what equipment you were using or what order that you did your processing. For them, if it sounds good, it is good. So let that be your guiding light when it comes to your audio, and take some of the stress off. And, good audio, that's the number one rule of voiceover, right? We've talked about it a number of times, and there's a number of ways to get there. So don't be afraid to find your way. All right. If you haven't yet, check in on the live stream chat. Let me know where you're watching and listening from this morning. Let's see what's going on. Congrats to Rick from Des Moines, who was first in this morning. We've got Rob in San Francisco, another voiceover blueprinter who is making fantastic progress. He said, completed a Fiverr job yesterday, made some good progress on an audiobook that I'm producing, got added to a voiceover roster. That is fantastic. Yeah. Let's see here. Finally getting some traction, Rob says. Yes. Corey in Wisconsin, good morning. Phil in Tokyo. Ethan in Toronto. Terry says, good morning, Bill, from an overcast Fallston, Maryland. Good advice this morning. MG, hello to you in North Carolina. Mary Rowe in New Jersey. GS in Longview. Jason in Oregon. Melissa, San Diego. Maggie in Pittsburgh. Southwestern Virginia in the house this morning. Mark in Wilmington, North Carolina. Let's see. Tbilisi. Mikhail in Portland, Maine. Thank you for the kind words. Jolie, good morning to you. Brian in San Antonio. Sandra, Dallas-Fort Worth. Marla in Texas. Anthony in Phoenix. Zach in Florida. Theo says, happy days to all from gloomy sky downtown Chicago, from the 22nd floor, looking through the windows down on a parade of umbrellas on the sidewalk. Very poetic. Doug in Greensboro, North Carolina. Good morning. We've got Tolga in Australia. I love that. We've got Mark in California, Central Valley. Dr. Bob in Clearwater, Florida. Ryan in British Columbia. John, Rhinebeck, New York. Tanya, South Philly. Carl Lynn, good morning from Zurich, not Lake Como at the moment. Well, I hope your travels are going well, Carl Lynn. And John in mighty Memphis, Ray and from Hallam, Victoria, Australia. We've got a good contingency here from Australia this morning, as well as the state of Michigan. Hello, Joy. How are you? Jason in Kearney, Nebraska. JR in Austin, Texas. Wayne in Port Orchard, Washington, looking for 80 degrees this weekend in Western Washington. But wait, it will pass. Just posted about that in a forum today. I've always trusted my ear for what the client would think, and it got me work. There you go. Yes. Hello from Cape Cod, Massachusetts. So hard not to overthink. It really is. And part of my job, I find as a coach, like in the blueprint where I'm dealing with students on a regular basis, is to help direct the thinking. Because what I find out is that about 98% of the thoughts that are going on are not relevant to what's good. They're not really important, or they're not critical to what's going on. Usually there's only a couple of things that are critical. And oftentimes they're not even being thought about because there's so many other things that are distracting. And so a big part of my job is keeping the focus, keeping the eye on the goal, and just helping to say, don't worry about this, don't worry about that. Let's just keep focused on this. And hopefully makes the way straight, makes the way clear and much easier. Rusty in the UP, good morning. Fancy Nancy in Cincinnati. Theo, don't forget to hit that like button, y'all, he says. Thank you, Theo. The Beatles recorded in 432 hertz. Are you kidding me? I did not know that. Of course, well, anyhow, we won't get into that whole discussion. Rebecca, how are you doing in Grand Rapids, Michigan this morning? Roy in California. Zach in Florida. Hope from Blueprint Town, USA. Wally finally back in the studio, just another blueprinter working to success in Annapolis, Maryland. Hey guys, thanks for being here. Audio is important. It's very important. And I'm not discrediting experts in audio. There are the general principles that are helpful and you need to understand, but don't get caught up in a more legalistic approach where you think that you have to follow this, and this. Remember, if it sounds good, it is good. Have a great day. We'll talk to you guys soon.